Hey everybody, welcome back to Reluctantly Productive. I'm F Baby, and this time we're taking a look at a route in Deshaan. This is part of our Best Routes in a Zone series. This is probably the best route in Deshaan. We're going to start at the Quarantine Cirque Way Shrine, and we're kind of just going to run a loop over to the Moathnar Hills Way Shrine. Then back up to where we start. You'll notice that when we get back to where we start at the end of the video, that the resources have mostly respawned. I've never done hardcore scientific research into it, but in my kind of observations, it takes about 15 minutes for resources in most zones that aren't small zones, so not your starter zones or Balfoyan, Hughesbane, Gold Coast, etc., to respawn. And so what I generally try to do is make loops that take about that long. And as always, the things I'm looking for in a good route are lots of nodes, which this route has, and then also not a ton of enemies or enemies that are easily passed by. We don't want to waste time fighting if we don't have to when we are just trying to gather and make some profit. Obviously, this is a base game zone, so there is a chance to gather some ethereal dust here. I didn't get any on this run, but it is a good zone or a good route for just about everything. You can, if you want, pick up the treasure chest here. I don't think that the Mother Sorrow gear sells for very much anymore. I haven't looked into it recently, but I think that there's still a chance that somebody will buy it. I'm pretty sure it's still on some guides as like your starter gear or your second tier gear, so there's probably still a market for it. I don't know what the desirable traits are these days for PvE, but it should probably still be divines, I would assume. And so something to avoid on this route, if you can, is we don't want to run into Narcissus. That actually just eats time. There's not that many resource nodes. You can go, if you really want to cut through town, if you just want to follow the road, you can, but don't get too sidetracked. You just got to get through town. There's not enough resources in here to make it worth your time. This is one of those few towns that normally on a map, if you click on a town and it's got the, kind of cutaway secondary map inside, there's usually a lot of resources in those. Like you can look at Anvil in Gold Coast and see that like that map actually has a ton of resource nodes hidden on it from your main map, but Narcissus is not that. There's no special amount of nodes or secret ore mines, etc. in there. And yeah, like I said, you're just going to make a loop, and we're going to end up right back where we started, just in time for things to respawn. I will call it that you'll see me zigzagging here in the video. It's not recommended. That was just my bad discipline as I was doing this. It's all the same. You can just kind of gather nodes in smaller areas if you want, and then move on down the route, or you can follow the route ironcladly, I guess, unerringly, and then end up back in the same spot, picking up nodes as you move along. You'll notice that I don't run into almost anybody else out here, and that's because unless you're doing the zone quests or any of the Deshaan quests out here, there's no reason for a player to be out here. Only new players would be out here, or people trying to get the Hero of Tamriel achievement. But otherwise, this is a pretty empty zone, and that's why not empty zone, but empty part of the zone. And that's kind of why I picked the left side of this map instead of the right side. On the right side, you'll see that there's more treasure chest density, and there's also more dolmen density. I don't know if it's as popular as it used to be, but it's still, like I said, Mother Sorrow could still sell, might still sell, I don't know. So I think that side of the zone tends to be more swarmed with people, and therefore even if they're just looking for treasure chests, there's a chance they'll grab your platinum nodes or your Columbine nodes, etc., and then you'll be out money. So this way you're left alone, and everything is everything's there for you, basically. Left to you. Some sort of weird sentence I was gonna say. I don't know what the hell that was. I don't know if you guys can tell, I don't have a script. Anyway, that's it for the farming advice or route part of this video. If you don't care about anything I'm going to say after this, you can just click to the end if you want to see totals, or you can click off now. Thanks for watching. Don't forget to like and subscribe. This week, going back to the classics, I finished I finished Persuasion by Jane Austen. I did that because on my other channel we watched Persuasion as the movie on Netflix, and so I'll talk a little bit about that here too. But the book is by Jane Austen. It's the last novel she finished before she died, and I've never read any Jane Austen before. I think I've read some passages for a lit class, like back in 02, 03. But I've never read a full Jane Austen book, and so I knew what to expect, but I didn't expect to actually enjoy it. I found this book to be pretty delightful overall, and I look forward to reading more works of hers. One of these days I will tackle Emma. I think that this is honestly potentially a great starter book for somebody looking to either read classics or read Jane Austen, because while the language is convoluted, it's a short book. And when I say the language is convoluted, it's convoluted in that Regency Victorian era writing style where people take 45 words to say 5. You know, there's literally a sentence, I think it's in the second or third chapter, where a man spends the whole time, like a whole sentence, it spawns from the start of a page to the next page, just saying like, oh, and I would never want to offend, and please, if there is any offense, note that it was not me who offended first, but merely the idea of the offense being offensive, and so therefore me talking about it cannot possibly be me giving offense. And you're just like, oh my god, you sniveling little bitch. And the end of that sentence is basically him saying pass over to the other person in the room, a lady named Lady Russell. But anyway, if you've never read it, Persuasion talks about Anne Elliot, who is probably Jane Austen's third most famous protagonist, who is a very reclusive and quiet girl. Not reclusive, she's more keeps to herself. She's an introvert. And this entire story is about a guy that she was engaged to 8 years, that she broke off the engagement with because people persuaded her that it wouldn't be a good match. He was broke, he didn't have a name, so he's kind of nothing. And then he comes back into her life through a couple circumstances, and she basically spends the whole book wondering, you know, has he moved on, and will I ever get a chance? And she wants to tell him that she still loves him, but she can't, because of her kind of pride and she doesn't really get the signal from him that he's interested in her. He starts flirting with other people, etc. And like I said, it was a fun read. I didn't swoon or anything at the end of it. It didn't give me the vapors, but I didn't hate it. I actually found myself towards the second half of the book, kind of unable to put it down. I was really turning pages pretty rapidly and finding myself being happy. I smiled. I enjoyed it. I wouldn't say it's the most amazing book in the entire world, but it certainly is a fun read. And like I said, it's short. It's 230 something pages. The movie adaptation on Netflix, you can listen to our episode. It'll be out in a week or so, I think, about Persuasion. It's over on Streaming Wasteland. If anybody doesn't know, that's the podcast I run with my buddy Ringo. But the movie is fine overall. I have a couple issues with it. This movie is on Netflix, came out in 2022. My two big issues with this movie are, one, they kind of did Anne dirty in making her more of a millennial kind of, I don't know what the right word is, almost like hipster, but that's not it. But in the movie, Anne's drunk for part of the movie, where she or not part of the movie, but off and on throughout the movie, it seems like all she likes to do is drink wine, and that is not who her character is in the book. And then the other part of it that I didn't care for is that they also put Anne out there way more than she is in the book. In the book, she's kind of mentioned as like, oh yeah, we all like Anne, but I mean, she's very plain and boring. Like, I mean, she's not ugly, but she's very whatever. In the movies, everyone's like, oh my god, Anne's our favorite. We don't know why all these bad things keep happening to you. It's very different. She's much more out there in the movie. There's a scene that's just remarkably reworked from the book, but where she's at dinner talking about how her sister's husband actually wanted to marry her first. That is not what happened in the book, and that rubbed me the wrong way. My other big knock on the movie is that there is no sense of pacing. The book takes place over the course of 10 months, and the movie seems to take place over the course of maybe 2 weeks. So I understand that courtly love has always been, or this type of courting anyway, has always been a little bit rushed. There's no prudence necessarily in it besides financial prudence. So if a young person decides, oh, I'm in love with them and I will ask for their hand in marriage, it could happen in 2 or 3 days. But the movie didn't really even give you time to see that. It was everything was happening as it's supposed to happen in the book, but just over the next day or two. And so, a character meets Captain Wentworth, which is Anne's ex-fiance, and within a day, she's like, I love him. And within 2 days, she's like, I'm going to marry him. And you don't get enough time, you don't get enough background of them spending time together for this to be something serious. And it's not played super serious in the book, but it's serious enough that Captain Wentworth is like, well, if her parents end up expecting me to marry her, I'll do it. So in the movie, it's literally just these characters have one interaction, and then they're like, I'm in love. And then the next time they're, I want to marry him. So it feels a little rushed. It's not ideal. But overall, the book is good. The movie is good. I think Dakota Johnson did a good job in the movie. And obviously, I think Jane Austen did a good job with the book. Of course I did. She's was a wonderful writer. And like I said, I'm looking forward to reading more Jane Austen in the future. So yeah, Persuasion, check it out. Anyway, we're at the end of the route here. As you can see, it wasn't very long, maybe about 15, 16 minutes. We got a good selection of stuff. I will say, of course, our total is bolstered because we grabbed a couple Cudas on our route, but that's, ideal. You grab some Cuda. There's also a decent amount of Columbine out this time. But yeah, you can now start the route over. As I said, everything has respawned. I think that's it for me. I'm out of here. Thanks for watching. Hope you enjoyed, and don't forget to like and subscribe. See ya.